Alright, so welcome back to the ancient world. So the last 3 videos I talked about most of what you can do in the game, all the various actions that you can take, and sort of just basically how to play the game. But there might have been a few things I might have left out. And so one of the things I definitely left out is Ambrosia. So obviously, you're going to be collecting a lot of these Ambrosia Tokens throughout the course of the game, because whenever you visit a new location that hasn't been visited before, there's going to be Ambrosia sitting there. And so you're probably wondering what else you can do with Ambrosia. And so here on each of the player boards, it actually tells you what you'll be able to do with Ambrosia once you've got it. Okay? So, if you have 4 Ambrosia tokens, so let's demonstrate that with actually 4 Ambrosia. So if you have 4 Ambrosia, you can use a placed citizen again. Okay? That's one of the things you can do. So a citizen, a worker that you've already placed and put somewhere, you can use them again in the same round. If you have 4 Ambrosia to use, of course. If you don't have 4, then you won't be able to do it. And since there's lots of other things you can do with Ambrosia, you might not get to do this too often. Unless you just, unless you're producing Ambrosia at the beginning of each round, which is possible. But that's one of the things you can do. It's also the most expensive thing you can do with Ambrosia. Okay? Now, the next thing you can do with Ambrosia is you can repair an Empire card, okay? So that's cool. So normally you can go to the rebuild location and spend a worker to do that, to go to that area. But of course, if you're spending a worker to go to rebuild, the action rebuild, to rebuild 2 of your buildings, that is technically still sort of a wasted, turn, if you will. A waste of your turn. But if you have some extra Ambrosia sitting around, it might be more plausible, and you only have 1 Empire card to rebuild anyway, it might be plausible to use Ambrosia to repair an Empire card. Now, I'm not sure exactly which one of these is the exception to the rule, but most of these here that you can use Ambrosia for, you don't even have to spend an action using them on. Okay? So there's at least one here you have to spend an actual action using Ambrosia to do something. Like, I think it might be the first one, use a placed citizen again. That might take an action to do. But some of these are considered free actions. Okay? So repair an Empire card, I think that is considered as a free action. Okay? Another thing you can do, and this is also technically a free action too, is you can feed a Titan. Now, we did talk about that. You can feed a Titan some Ambrosia to stop it from attacking your civilization if you aren't able to defeat the Titan that's certainly still sitting on your player board, okay? But we didn't really talk too much about the fact that it is still considered a free action, but it will be +1 per banner. So if there's 1 banner on the monster, the Titan that you're fighting, you'll have to pay 1 of your Ambrosia tokens to do it. But most likely the case, there'll be 2 or 3, and so you'll have to pay 2, probably, maybe more, to the Titan that you are trying to basically stop from attacking you, to appease, if you will, for at least that round. And then of course the Ambrosia, they will sit on the Titan, okay? Now I didn't grab a Titan from the box, and I don't feel like looking for one in the box right now. But basically but this is the Titan spot on your player board anyway. So just pretend there's a Titan sitting there. So if there's Ambrosia tokens sitting on the Titan, and your opponent comes and they take out the Titan for you, they get the Ambrosia tokens that you put onto the Titan. That is a benefit, an additional benefit they get for helping you out. If you defeat the Titan that has Ambrosia tokens on it, then you do not get the Ambrosia back, okay? because you're the one that used them in the first place. So that's the downside, is if you're constantly putting Ambrosia onto Titans that you do not defeat, or just simply can't defeat, your opponent can come and defeat it for you, and then they're going to get all that Ambrosia. So, and then of course they still get the other benefit for defeating the Titan to boot. And so, yeah, you might have avoided casualties or avoided some buildings being destroyed, but in the end, your opponent is going to get a big benefit for helping you out. So obviously, you're going to want to try not to do this whenever possible, putting Ambrosia on a Titan. But that is one of the things that you can do with Ambrosia. That's the second thing you can do with Ambrosia. Okay? Or should I say that's the third thing you can do with Ambrosia. So the fourth thing you can do with Ambrosia is you can add 1 to a citizen skill. So that's interesting. A citizen skill. Actually, we'll come back to that because I still don't fully understand that one myself. Okay, so the next one is you can feed a citizen, and it will require 2 Ambrosia to feed a citizen. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? Okay, so your capital city starts with 1 food, right? And you also start with the wheat fields, and you also start with the fishing docks. Each of those provide 1 food for each of your citizens. You normally start with the 3 citizens, okay, the 3 workers. This is a work placement game, okay? If you get more workers and you don't have the food to feed the additional worker you get later on in the game, then you're not going to be able to use that additional worker, okay? But for the round, just the round only, if you don't have the additional food, because you weren't able to get one somehow, for some reason or another, you weren't able to get one, and it's possible that could happen, because it really is contingent on what cards show up and stuff, or what Titans show up and stuff, and what Titans are able to defeat and stuff. But if you can't pay the food, or if a Titan destroys your wheat fields, for instance, you might not have enough food in that way as well. But if that happens and you have some Ambrosia tokens, you can instead feed the citizen with 2 Ambrosia tokens instead. Okay? So that's something you can do. But it only works for that round, so if you want to keep paying at that additional food cost for a worker, it's going to be 2 this round. The next round, you want to do it, and if you can't get more food, it's going to cost you another 2. And it's going to cost you 2 every round. So it's going to be very expensive if you're doing that quite a bit. So you're definitely going to want to find a way to get more food. But that's one of the things you can do. Okay? Well, the next one on the list is probably the second most expensive. It's going to cost you 3 Ambrosia tokens. And you get 1 sword. Okay? So This is evident to note that this is for when you're fighting a Titan. Okay, let's say you're just 1 sword shy away from defeating a Titan. It requires 5 swords, and you have 4 swords altogether. Okay, you can use 3 Ambrosia to gain 1 sword to that equation in order to fight the Titan, and that's what that means. So that's one thing you can do. And of course, if you had 6 Ambrosia, you could do 6 to gain to gain 2 swords, for instance. But it's swords. So if it's a Titan that you have to beat with arrows, then that's not going to work because it's only for swords. You're only going to gain a sword. Same thing with that drafting action that you can take. It only drafts a sword. It doesn't draft any arrows. So that is something to note. Okay? But that's something you can do as well with Ambrosia. And then I don't know why you would want to, but for 2 Ambrosia that you pay, you can gain 1 coin. If you ask me, that's kind of almost minuscule because you can send a worker to the labor action, and by doing so, you get 2 coins. I don't know why you'd want to spend Ambrosia on coins, though, unless you're just 1 coin off from getting something you want to buy or something like that. Or should I say build or something. But still, that would probably not happen too often. You're most likely to save your Ambrosia for either repairing something or or like repairing a building, for instance, or placing a citizen again, or I know I definitely did the feed a Titan a couple of times as well. Or should I say, Manta did it a couple of times. He definitely fed the Titan at least twice. So I was able to get some Ambrosia because I helped him out. So, but yeah, you're going to be saving your Ambrosia probably for those things. And so something tells me gaining a sword and gaining a coin is not likely to happen. But feed a citizen could be something that you will have to do. So, but that's basically how Ambrosia works. Now, I didn't talk about add 1 to a citizen skill. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I'll have to look that up. So I'll share that with you guys in the next video about what add 1 to a citizen skill is, because I want to make sure I get my facts straight first. I kind of forgot about that particular skill. But before we continue on with the next video, let's just go over each of these player boards and their ability that you get if you decide to play as one of these civilizations. So if you play as the Unearthers of Umnak, your ability is you get to start with 1 knowledge, which is cool, right? So you get one of those really cool looking scrolls, which is nice, right? Let me grab one, or should I say grab the bag. So you get one of these, okay? You get to start with one of these. None of the other players probably get to start with one of these because they're probably not, their particular civilization doesn't get these probably to start with. But you get to start with 1. So that's really cool. It could come in handy maybe to get you a district early on, or maybe recruit an army early on as one of your first actions in the game. That could be very useful. And then, that's not all you get. You also gain 1 Ambrosia when you gain knowledge. So that's really cool. So whenever you get another one of these, every time you get a knowledge, regardless of how you obtain it, whether it be from a card or from the actual action learn, which is called learn, for instance, you'll get one of these every time you get one of these. That is really cool. So that is one of the abilities. That's one of the types of abilities you'll get to start with if you play as this particular civilization. So, let's do the next one. Another one I've played with. Or should I say, I played with this one, and Manta actually played with the other one. So this is the one I played with. Merchants of Merlum. Okay? If you play as them, and I didn't get this ability because it was my first time playing, but if you play as the Merchants of Merlum, you get to start with plus 4 coins. That's cool. So you'll have 4 more coins over somebody else, so you can buy something expensive or buy 2 cards for that matter. That's cool. But then you also gain grow starting on the second round. So the grow action, okay, can only be accessed by all players until the 3rd round. But if you are playing as the Merchants of Merlum, you get it in round 2. So that means that you get access to a new worker 1 round before everybody else. So you're going to have an extra action each round before everyone else. That's really cool. Or should I say an extra worker action anyways, every round. So while they're still getting theirs in round 3 and aren't able to use theirs until round 4, you will get yours in round 2nd, probably, with this particular player board or particular civilization. And you'll be utilizing that, most likely, that new worker in round 3, while everyone else will have to wait till round 4 to utilize it. So that's really cool. Now, there are alternative ways of getting workers even without the grow action. So it's possible that there might be other players who get a new worker before even you. That is possible. But still, you get that starting ability plus the 4 coins. That's a pretty nice ability. Okay. Then we have the Guardians of Galadan. Okay. Now, they don't actually have any information available in text. However, I completely understand what this means. If you have this player board, the Guardians of Galadan, you get to start with an additional arrow towards your combat. So whenever you fight a Titan, you get to include this with whatever army or armies you're using to take out the Titan. You get to include one additional arrow. So that can be very beneficial against Titans that can only be defeated by arrows, for instance. And that can also be beneficial for when you're facing a Titan that can be defeated by both swords and arrows. So that would be very useful. But then you also, this symbol here with the card and the helmet looking thing on it, that indicates that you get to have one additional army at the start of the game. So normally you start with 2 armies, okay? It's not saying that you get to start with 3 armies at the start of the game. It just means that the next time you get an army, instead of having to switch out one of the 2 that you start with, you can get 3 instead. So you'll have 1, 2, and 3. And then you can start switching them out like normal. Of course, if you still want to switch them out beforehand, you can do that too. It's not making you do it. It's just an additional option. You'll have access to 3 armies at any given time, while the other players, unless they get a card that says otherwise, and there are some out there, they will have 2 armies. So you have the attacking advantage against any Titan. So if you want to attack Titans a lot, if that is your strategy to take out Titans left and right, this is probably going to be the civilization for you, Guardians of Galadan. And then, one left. The Architects of Amnite. So, Architects of Amnite. And isn't that a beautiful city? It is. It's just very beautiful. Okay, so if you have this particular civilization, you're going to have a -1 coin cost for buildings that cost 4 or more. Or 4 or less, I think. Not exactly sure if that's 4 or more or 4 or less, but I would think it's probably for buildings that cost 4 or more rather than 4 or less, because I think the 4 would be the other side. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, that's still pretty cool that some of the buildings that you buy will cost 1 less, but then districts cost 1 coin less as well. So whenever you go and get yourself a district, you have to pay 3 coins or you have to pay 1 knowledge. Okay? So when you go and get a district and you pay the 3 coin cost instead of the 1 knowledge, it's only going to cost you 2 coins, not 3. So that's really cool. I like that a lot. I don't know if I really need the -1 coin cost for buildings, though, regardless of the case, because it's just 1 coin. So it's probably not the best ability there is. But if you're trying to build tons of buildings and, and then obviously you'll also need districts too, because you can only have so many buildings with only 1 district. So you need to have, that makes sense. You need to have more districts if you're going to have more buildings. And so with that said, I don't know how I feel about that, but if you're the player that is gunning for that, is strategizing on just building tons of buildings, that you're just building so many buildings the Titans can't keep up with you, then maybe this particular civilization is for you, rather than maybe perhaps the Guardians of Galadan, for instance, which is probably the exact opposite, almost, from this one. So that's really cool. So definitely some interesting gameplay, regardless of what you're playing as. Really cool gameplay. Okay, so in the next video, I think I will, if I can figure out exactly what it is, I'll talk about this one here. Add 1 to a citizen skill for Ambrosia, and then we will start talking about the cards, starting with the A deck and going over all the different cards that there are and talking about what they do. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next video.